Ezra startled awake in the dark, his chest heaving as if he had been running. The sheets clung to his damp skin, twisted around his legs, the echo of the dream still burning in him. He sat up, pressing both hands to his face, but the images would not fade. Lily. He had been happily married to Hannah. He was aware of Lily's striking beauty, but had no reason to think of her as anything more than a musician of the church. The dream had blurred into something he couldn't deny, and he knew without a doubt she was going to be the only woman who could be for him. What if she had a boyfriend, he thought. He knew she wasn't married, but she could be dating someone. He groaned, torn between shame and longing. Hannah's face flickered in his mind, but it was Lily's eyes that lingered, Lily's music that echoed like a pulse through his veins. The taste of desire still clung to him, and he hated himself for it. "Lord," he whispered into the silence, voice hoarse, "why her? Why now?" The parsonage was quiet, the children asleep in their rooms, unaware of their father's torment. Ezra swung his legs over the edge of the bed, his hands trembling. He was a pastor, a man sworn to shepherd his flock, to guard his heart. And yet, in the stillness of the night, he couldn't escape the truth. Lily Moore was no longer just his pianist. She was in his thoughts, his prayers, even his dreams. And the dangerous part was, he wasn't sure if he wanted her to leave. The sanctuary was empty when Lily placed the folded envelope on the piano. She rested her hand on the lid for a moment, steadying herself, then turned to leave. Her resignation letter was short, polite, carefully worded. She had told herself it was only admiration, only respect for his devotion, her strength under trial. But in the silence of her apartment, she could no longer deny the truth. Her feelings had deepened into something she had no right to feel, not for a grieving widower, not for her pastor, not mere weeks after his wife and his children's mother was taken from them. And after last Sunday, when that song seemed to pass through her hands, after the night she found herself awake, thinking of him intimately instead of sleeping, Lily knew she couldn't stay. The sound of footsteps startled her. She turned to see Pastor Hayes standing at the back of the sanctuary, his coat slung over one arm. His eyes caught the paper she had left on the piano, and he frowned. "What's that?" he asked, his voice low but edged with concern. Lily swallowed hard as his steps drew closer to her. Seeing him now, her heart caught. She had seen him 100 times before, but always in the mantle of pastor, shepherd, father. Now, for the first time, she saw him simply as a man. Handsome, steady, carrying both strength and sorrow in a way that made her chest ache. She was always aware that he was a breathtaking sight to see, in a very sinful way. He had some of the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen on a man, but she never allowed herself to think of him as nothing more than her pastor. After all, he couldn't help how he looked no more than anyone deformed. "It's my resignation. I think it's best for the church if I step down." Ezra's brow furrowed, and for a long moment he didn't speak. Then he walked closer, his gaze fixed on her as if searching for the truth behind her words. "Lily, is this because of me?" She wanted to deny it, to smile and say she simply needed a break. But the weight in his voice, the tenderness, the unspoken awareness between them, made her eyes burn with unfallen tears. She shook her head quickly, though her silence betrayed her. "Please, just let it be." Ezra stood by the piano, his hand resting on the letter, as though he might tear it apart then and there. The air between them was thick, charged, dangerous. Finally, he said softly, "You're more than a pianist here. Your music, it holds me together when nothing else can. Don't leave, Lily, not like this." Her chest ached more, torn between longing and fear. She lowered her eyes, unable to answer, and slipped past him before her resolve broke completely. "It's the right thing to do," she said softly. "For who?" Ezra asked gently. The door shut behind her, and Ezra stood alone in the sanctuary, staring at the letter that threatened to take away not just a musician, but the one person whose presence was becoming an anchor to him. The rest of the week went quickly. Ezra's days were filled with church duties and meetings with Victor's lawyers. He was trying desperately not to take this to trial, but Victor was relentless, even though he didn't show up to the meetings in person. Ezra knew that Victor didn't care about his niece and nephew, just about winning. It was Saturday night, after a special meeting held with some additional staff at the church. He received a call from an old business private eye from his corporate days, when he realized the betrayal cut deeper. He discovered Victor's tactic, his ace in the hole if this all went to trial. Bribes. A deacon he trusted, Darren, had been paid to testify against him. claiming he left his children unattended during evening services. He had broke bread with the man many times. Glancing out the window, the night was darker than usual, heavy clouds blotting out even the moonlight. After everyone left, Ezra sat alone, slumped in the front pew of the sanctuary. His children were asleep at the parsonage, but his mind refused to rest. He'd borne insults before, but this knowledge, coupled with more threats, more attempts to tear at the seams of his life, felt like a weight pressed like an iron band around his chest. His strength, the strength everyone expected of him, was wearing thin. For a long while, he whispered broken prayers that dissolved into silence. At last, with trembling hands, he reached for his phone. His thumb hovered over Lily's name. He hesitated. What right did he have to call her? She had already resigned a few days before. What if it was too late, too forward, too selfish? He couldn't trust his staff to lean on because he wasn't sure who he could trust now, and she was not a part of his staff any longer. He still had the letter to prove it, but he was in a bad way, feelings unbearable, so he pressed the button. Hello. Her voice was soft, tinged with surprise. Lily, he whispered, his voice raw. I'm sorry to call you so late. He broke off, swallowing hard. I need someone to be here, just for a while. Could you come? There was no pause, no hesitation. I'll be there. 15 minutes later, the door creaked open, and Lily slipped inside. She didn't ask questions, didn't press him for explanations. She just crossed the aisle, slid into the pew beside him, and waited. For a moment, Ezra couldn't speak. His chest ached with the effort of holding everything in. Then, as though her presence unlocked something, the words spilled out. I can't keep doing this alone, he admitted, his voice breaking. I keep telling myself I'm strong enough, that God is enough. But some nights, it feels like I'm failing everyone. My children, my church, even him. Lily didn't answer with words. She simply reached out and covered his trembling hand with her own. Warm, steady, grounding. I don't need you to fix anything, Ezra said hoarsely. I just needed someone to see me. Not the pastor, not the man holding it all together. Just me. She squeezed his hand gently. Then that's exactly who I see. For the first time that night, Ezra exhaled. The knot in his chest loosened. He leaned back against the pew, his shoulder brushing hers, and together they sat in the quiet sanctuary while the storm inside him stilled. Lily rose after a while and moved to the piano. Without a word, she began to play a low, soothing melody, not a hymn this time, but something gentle, almost like a lullaby. Ezra closed his eyes and listened, letting the music wash over him until his breathing steadied, his heart no longer racing. While both still silent, both thought of Hannah. Both were recalling the same past brief conversation between Lily and Hannah when she asked her to join the choir. Such a beautiful voice you have, Lily had told her. Hannah smiled, thanked her, and politely declined. Pastor Hayes was nearby, overheard the conversation, and briefly smiled at Lily, glad that someone else was appreciative of his wife's light. Now, Lily began to hum softly with the song, and Ezra swore he could hear Hannah's soft tone mingled with hers. When the final notes faded, he opened his eyes to find her watching him. Thank you, he whispered, his eyes saying everything he dared not to. She smiled softly. You looked like you needed it. Does this mean you won't resign? He asked desperately. Her smile suddenly vanished as if it were never there. A cold, raw look surfaced across her face that echoed glimpses of something she couldn't speak of. Sometimes you have to walk away, even when it hurts. Before they parted, Ezra asked if they could share a hug. Lily hesitated at first, but got the sense that he needed touch, not intimate, but literally someone to lean on. So she held her arms out and allowed him to hold her as tightly as he needed to. When he did see her off, and he was back at home in bed, he realized the truth, feeling calmer than he had felt all week. He would need to hear her music for the rest of his life. He thought about his brother, and was beginning to feel a growing peace about that situation as well. A slow smile graced his face as he prayed. Lord, vengeance is yours, he whispered. But if you will not deliver it, then guide my hand. To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Part 3 continues the saga.